Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I'm here to share with you my October TBR, all the books I plan to read in the month of October. And if you're not aware, I don't actually do TBRs every month, but there's something just special about October because of course it's the month of Halloween. So I've been planning this TBR since April, and it's definitely changed throughout the months, but I think I've settled on these books. And I just wanted to share it with you because I thought it was a lot of fun. Now, the other thing I want to mention before I get started is the fact that if you're not aware, last year I did a video on the scariest books that I've ever read, and it did really well. It's one of my favorite videos. I'm very proud of it. And I really want to do it again this year for Halloween. However, while I've read a lot of really good horror books, I don't feel like I've read enough really scary ones in order to justify that video. I felt like it would either be too short or I would be putting books on that list that weren't really that scary, but just kind of creepy. And I just felt like that kind of missed the point. So instead, what I decided to do was make my October TBR all about reading the scariest books that I've heard about but haven't read yet. So the plan is that if I do a good job picking out these books, these will hopefully end up on my next video of the scariest books I've read, which will hopefully come out next Halloween. So I've heard that all of these books are super scary. I've heard that they are dark, disturbing, and all the things that I love. And I just want to share them with you. Hopefully I can give you some inspiration for your own Halloween TBRs, and let's get started. Now, the first book on my list is Off Season by Jack Ketchum, which is about an editor that goes to a remote cabin with their sister and their friends, and they discover that they are possibly living nearby to a family of cannibals. This book I'm definitely going to be reading this month because it's my Patreon book club pick, so if you want to join us, I always have info down below. But this is one I've had on my list for quite a while. I just think that cannibal books are really scary because of course they have that very visceral aspect to it, tons of body horror, and I've just heard in general that Jack Ketchum's books are really intense. I know for a lot of you, you're going to tell me to go and read The Girl Next Door, which isn't my TBR, but if I'm honest, I actually think I'm going to connect better with this one, and it's going to be personally scarier for me because of the subject matter. I know a lot of people say that The Girl Next Door is the scariest book they've ever read, so I will check it out, but I'm a little bit more interested in this one, so I wanted to start here, but I will get to that one, I promise. It just won't make the list this month. Now, I also want to pick up some indie horror this month, so I decided to go with Trapped by Jack Kilborn. This is a story of 6 troubled teenagers that go off on a camping trip with their court-assigned guardians. They go to a remote island where supposedly there used to be a Confederate prison, and there is an old legend that those Confederates had to survive by eating each other, and so of course this island is possibly not as deserted as it seems, and these Confederate soldiers might still be there and might still be hungry. This book is described as being super intense, super disturbing, and apparently again, cannibals just work for me. I promise this isn't just a TBR of cannibal books, but I did have 2 on my list because when I was going through Goodreads, these were both books that jumped out at me, and I just think this book is going to be a lot of fun. Again, lots of body horror, slasher goodness, all that good stuff that I'm expecting, and I will report back and let you know what I think. Next, I plan on reading The Omen by David Seltzer, and I am one of the few people who has not seen the movie. I definitely want to. Hopefully I'll get to it this month after reading the book, but this is about the Antichrist coming to Earth as a young boy, and I don't know more about it, but if you know me, I really enjoy books about creepy children, and I just think that this one might really scratch that itch. So it sounds just really dark. It's a fairly short horror book, which tends to work well for me because I find that it's easier for a book to be scary if it doesn't have too many pages because it makes the story more condensed, more focused. And so I have high hopes for this one, and again, hopefully I'll get to the movie afterwards. I'd love to know down below what you think of the film. Next is a book I am excited for but also really nervous to pick up, and that is Exquisite Court by Poppy Z. Bright. This is a book about serial killers that team up together and pick out their next victim. I've heard so many dark things about this book. I know that John from his channel Books of Blood, who I'm going to have linked down below, has said that this is one of the scariest books he's ever read, and he reads a lot of dark stuff, so definitely recommend checking out his channel. But I know that this book involves a lot of trigger warnings. It's supposed to involve a lot of violence and gore, and the author just really goes to some dark, dark places. I'm also very interested in reading Bright's work because they are a queer author, and I'm always looking for that representation. I do think that there are gay characters in this book, but it's definitely not a nice queer horror book, so I'm a little bit apprehensive going into it. I think it's possibly the darkest of all of their books, and we'll just see how it goes. I'm not quite sure if this one's gonna work for me, but I will give it an honest shot. And again, report back, good or bad, you'll hear from me. Next is Let's Go Play at the Adams by Mendel W. Johnson, which is a story of a babysitter that's taking care of a couple of kids while their parents go off to Europe. Things are going well until one day the babysitter wakes up and finds himself tied to the bed by the children and their friends. And I understand that this book is basically about a group of children torturing this young woman. And I've heard really good things about this book, and I've also heard really bad things about this book, and it's again just one I have to check out for myself. This book became very popular because it was included in the Paperbacks from Hell book, and it has been reprinted thanks to Valancourt. And yeah, I've just got to try it out. I heard that there are tons of content warnings, and I've looked at my Goodreads reviews, and my friends seem to either think it's amazing or they're just disgusted by it and saying, what the heck is this book? I don't know how I'm going to fall on this book, if it's going to work for me or be just too out there. But if you're going to talk about really disturbing books, apparently this is one to check out, and I definitely wanted to include a vintage horror book on this list because I'm really trying to read more vintage horror this year because I've had some good luck with the ones I've tried so far, and hopefully this will be a new favorite. I also want to include a reread on this list, and that is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I'm going to be reading this with my black-hearted friend Sandy, who was so kind and gifted me this book off my wish list. I have, as I mentioned, read this book before and really enjoyed it. It's of course the classic possession story, and I have watched the movies, one of the few horror movies I have watched, and really enjoyed it as well. And while I enjoyed this one so much, I didn't find it overly scary as a reading experience, but I think that's more my fault. I read this on a really hot summer day out by a racetrack, and I just think the atmosphere didn't really allow me to get fully immersed in this book. So I've always meant to reread it, and I'm very curious to try it again. I'm thinking about actually trying the audiobook, but of course I have the physical book here, so I might do both because I've heard that it's narrated by the author, but that can also be a bad thing because authors aren't always great at narrating their own books. So let me know if you have opinions, but Sandy, I'm really looking forward to revisiting this book with you. It's been years since I've read it, and even though I've read it before, I'm hoping that reading it in the right atmosphere will just make for a really good, creepy read. I also want to read The Cipher by Kathy Koja. This is a book about a couple of people working in a video store where they discover a strange hole in the storage room. They start to experiment and put things inside of it, and it just sounds like a really weird book, and I'm hoping that it will be very disturbing. I've heard described as psychological horror, which can definitely be one of the scariest subgenres. And I want to include at least one female author on this list because I did notice when I was searching online for scariest books ever, scariest horror books, they were pretty much all books written by men, and you see a lot of that online, but I really wanted to make sure to find a horror book written by a female author that also was supposed to be super scary. And I've never read this author before, but I have heard that her books are really intense, so I'm looking forward to checking this one out. As always with all these books, I'll be reporting back, good or bad. I'll let you know what I think. And last, I plan on reading Kill Creek by Scott Thomas, which is a story of 4 horror authors that agree to spend the night in a supposedly haunted house as a bit of a gimmick. And this is one of those iconic books that always gets talked about on Booktube and is perfect to read this time of year because it is set on Halloween. And I had it on my TBR last year and I didn't get to it. So this year it's definitely happening. I'm planning on reading it with Becky from Super Space Chick. I'm gonna have her channel linked down below. She normally reads a lot more fantasy, but if you enjoy that as much as I do, I recommend her channel. She is bubbly and Star Wars obsessed like I am, and I really enjoy her content. But she was willing to read a horror book this month, and so I thought it'd be a really fun buddy read. And yeah, I'm finally gonna get to this one. Of all the books on this list, this one I expect to be the least scary. You know me, I'm not a huge fan of haunted house stories, so I'm going to this one with kind of tempered expectations, but it's such a booktube darling. I have to check it out for myself and get my own review out there. So I will let you know, but I'm looking forward to finally getting this one off my TBR because it's been on there for way too long and it should be a fun buddy read for sure. So that is it for this video. Let me know if you would like me to do TBR videos a little more often on my channel, because again, I don't do them every month, but it is sometimes fun to know what someone is planning on reading and getting some ideas for your own reading list. I would love to hear from all of you. What is the scariest book on your TBR? Maybe I can squeeze it in on this list. And I would also love for you to subscribe if you haven't already. I read a lot of horror as well as thrillers, science fiction, fantasy. And at the end of the month, my plan is to vlog this whole experience and be able to give you a reading vlog talking about these books as I'm reading them, and I can give you my in the moment reactions as I'm experiencing the books, and hopefully sharing which ones were actually as scary as I expected and which ones were maybe not. So I think that'll be a really fun reading vlog to put together. I hope you will enjoy it, and like I said, stick around. Otherwise, don't forget to drop a comment, give me a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell. It really helps out my channel, and thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.